Former prisoner and inmate.
You did it.
What are you doing, Guns?
You bit the hell out of me.
Wanna see you with your hands up. Going straight to the sky, let me see you put your hands up. Cause we do till we die and we on another level.
I'm at New York City.
To the rest of your body, got a piece of the pie. Told you once, told you twice that we only got one life.
On the way to achieve success after prison, and he's going to share his story with us right now.
Diamond shine, best at night. You wear yours, I'll wear mine. Go dumb tonight.
What's up, Holmes? That's the lowest my caps ever been. This makes me think of that movie Friday. It's chilly up here. So this is the next evolution into my life of really failure. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it, is what led me to failure in life? What led me down a path of self-destruction and waste, where I wasted away the first half of my life. That's what these are about. And the main reason I'm sharing them, because I hope to inspire people. A, if you're a parent, to not make the mistakes that my parents made. And B, learn from my mistakes, my mistakes. Don't make them. And C is always be reminded that you can overcome anything, man. Like there was a day where they said, on behalf of the county of Oakland and state of Michigan, I hereby sentence you to 13 to 50 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections with no credits for good time and blah, 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 blah. Now, I didn't fall on the ground and start crying and go, oh, no. I had my head up, held my head up. I was cuffed. They walked me into a bullpen. I sat there and waited my fate. And they took me back to the jail the next day. They put me on a bus. They drove me to Jackson with some other guys. I went through quarantine. And that was that, which is also a funny story, because one of the dweeby haters of mine, they're like, because I talked about how I got stabbed and stuff, and I had been shot in both legs, and they're like, oh, it is Michigan Department of Corrections practice to when you go to prison, they mark down all of your scars and all that. I'm like, what the? I'm sorry, I can't, man. Listen, they don't know. What really happens is they don't. You go through quarantine, you're like with 50 guys going through this mill, and there's stations, and they walk you through and say, are you sick? They give you an AIDS test, and you're like, please don't let it, they pretty quickly, and they're like, we all wait, and then they come back, you're clean. And then, these little stations, and at one point, they're like, do you have any scars, remarkable scars or tattoos? And I'm just, I'm like, no. You don't have any gang tattoos? No. Now, the scar, I'm going to show you a scar. Where is it? You can't, there's two scars right there where I was stabbed. You can barely see them. I wasn't going to, it was some fat black chick, and there's 25 guys, and I wasn't going to go, oh yeah, 10 years ago I got stabbed in the stomach. Here, look. Didn't even think of it. Didn't even care. All I said is, yeah, I got a birthmark on my left arm. That's what I said. And then there's another guy who's a gang cop. He's like, you don't have any gang tattoos? I'm like, no. And I don't remember if he even told me to take my shirt off. If you got tattoos on your arm or your neck or something, they'll pull you aside, take your shirt off and mark any of your tattoos in a file. Because you're supposed to tell them you're in a gang. That's what you do. Like, you're in a gang, yeah, I'm with Serenos, or I'm a Crip, or I'm a Blood, or I'm a Latin Count, Vice Lord, whatever. They admit it, they know it, and they put them in a certain classification. They know, they're gonna know, because you're gonna be on the yard with a bunch of gangbangers. You're gonna have tattoos. Me, I came through and was like, I got nothing. And then look at the scar, man. Can you see the scar? They sawed me open. This whole thing is a scar. This whole thing. And I got 3 stab wounds down here. And they're not easy to see because I got a kind of hairy belly. But I certainly wasn't going to say, oh yeah, I got stabbed 10 years ago, look, or my bullet wounds. I could show you my freaking bullet wounds on my leg. but they're so faded out. They're 20 years old. Can you see that right there? That's where I got shot in the leg 20 years ago. You think I was gonna freaking say to the lady, oh, by the way, I got shot with a 22 in the leg. Here's a scar, mark it down. That's how these geeks think. They think that they're like, oh, got him. He's lying. He said he was shot, but in his file, it doesn't say he was shot. Any real ones would look at that, listen to that, and just laugh. It's just goofy, man. Yeah, I got stabbed a few times. 3 times, 3 stab wounds in 2 different stabbing occasions. Got in a knife bite in front of a titty bar. Then I got got stabbed when I got jumped, hit in the head with a bat. And that's another thing. I told the story the one time, the first time I told the story is how, I got hit from behind and I turned around, and just as I turned around, guy was wham, broke the bat over my head, literally broke it. And it spun me around. I landed against the front of my car and I saw the bat and I could hear the bat, the sound of the wood bat going clunk, 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 clunk down the street. And I instantly knew that this guy just broke a bat over my head. And I just said, I turned around and said, I'm going to kill this motherfucker. And I turned around, grab him by the throat, and I tackle him, bang. But then another time I told a story when I got hit in the back of the head. I just said I turned around and grabbed him by the throat. I forgot to tell him the part where I turned around and the guy hit me in the head with a bat in the front of my head. It's just a slip up. I told the story for 100 times. I just forgot to mention one little detail. I can see he's lying. He wasn't exactly the same. Shut up, you freaking idiots. But anyways, so back to my evolution of life at this point. The last video I left off how my uncle caught me with some weed and said, no, you're going to sell my weed. And I said, all right, I mean, the price was right. Why the hell not? So at this point, I'm making what I consider pretty big bank. And the run did not last long. So I wasn't like stacking shit. I mean, my entire run was like a year, maybe less. But, there were times where I was making 3, 4, 5,000 a week. And there were some times I was making 2,000, 3,000 a week. But I had, like I said, I was fronting weed to all these kids in the neighborhood, and they were bringing me the money every Friday. And they were always a little bit short because I was charging them a ton. Eli was the only one who'd show up with like $700. He'd be like, oh man, somebody owes me for this, that, and I'll get that on the next, blah, blah, and I give him the weed. He was also the only one who was smart little enterprising mother effer. I'll give it to the kid. He was slick, man. And I knew what he was doing, and I didn't do anything. And that was my mistake. I gave him an inch. He took a mile. I knew what he was doing was flipping my sack quick, 2-3 days. So now he's got 900 in his pocket, 1,000 in his pocket. He gets a plug down in Southwest Detroit. He's Mexican, his cousin and stuff. He runs down there with my $1,000 and he buys a pound or half pound or 3/4 of a pound, whatever he can get. Comes back to the hood, boom, 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 boom. He's slanging. When it comes Friday to meet me, to pay me and get another bag, he'd have my money, but he'd always be a little bit short. He was slick in the fact that I'm not paying $900 for a 1/4 pound in the front. And even if you're going to force me to do it, I'll find a way around it. And he's like, I'll give you 700, 720, whatever. And he'd always make an excuse. But I didn't care. I was making so much money. I'm like, just give it to me. Here's another 1/4 pound. See you next Friday. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? I didn't give a shit. The other kids were like, here's your 900, Al. They're on the spot. It might be a couple short, $20, $40 short, $50 short. But they were just boom, boom, boom. And I'll give it to you. Like, the way I knew he was doing it because all of a sudden he had a bunch of freaking money, and also it's funny how when you have money and drugs, how it changes your perception of people or how people perceive you, rather. I could tell everybody was on this kid's dick, man. All of a sudden, why are they on this kid's dick? This little crew of freaking wannabe tough guys, these wannabe gangsters. They're like, Eli's now their freaking idol. Like, they all on his dick. Then he buys a new IROC. Red IROC with like rims on it and stuff. Now I know he ain't making enough money selling my dope to buy that freaking car. Then he buys the crotch rocket, and he's got them all under his wing because he's got money. He's paying for the food, he's paying for the beer, and they all ride his dick now. And I watch it because I hang around him a little bit. It's like all I did was my rounds in the neighborhood. I go to Tony's house, I go to Jose's house, I go to Billy's house, I go to Larry's house, go to Mike's house, I go to Pete's house. What else is the house that I go to? Hammersmith's house, Gino's house. I just kind of Mario's house. And those guys always hung around the same spots. They were always either at Tony's house or Jose's house or Eli's house. And Eli lived on my street. So I jump in my car and drive down the street, and I'd see them all hanging out on the front lawn, sitting around. They're all high, they all got new clothes and crap. I'm like, they got beepers. I did that. I helped them get money, a little bit of money, put some clothes on their back and a little bit of jewelry. They think they're all big time drug dealers now. They're all hanging out, laughing on the front lawn. But Eli's there with his car parked in the driveway, this dope new car. I pull up like, yo, whose car is it? He got a new car. I'm like, yeah, nice car. He doing good, huh? And in my mind, I'm like, I know what you're doing. Because every time I come around, he'd look at me real scared. Like he's wondering like, if Al finds out, if he's going to know. And I knew. But I didn't care. I should have, though. I should have freaking took him aside. You know what? I should have done it right in front of everybody. I done slapped him around all in front of everybody before, later on. I should have went right in front of him. I said, mother, I should have grabbed him by the freaking throat. I said, man, what do you think you're doing, bro? You're freaking shaking my sack, then go and get another sack and shaking that. And then if you need more weed, you come to me. You don't go to freaking your plug and get your weed and sell behind my back. If you need more, give me a call. I'll bring you more. And I even would have been like, yo, I'll cut you a deal because you're selling more. I'll give you a break. Maybe I'll give it to you for $700 a pound or a quarter pound or whatever. But instead, he went behind my back on his own plug and was selling it. So it's a dirty game. But whatever. I didn't care. And to be perfectly honest, I liked the kid for what he did. I should have freaking shook him up. But he did what I would have done. I had to respect it. I respected it. I kind of was like, yo, I get it, bro. I would have done the same freaking things. So how can I be mad for what he did? He thought I was going to freaking kill him. And we became like best friends years later. And he flat out told me, he's like, dude, I was so scared that you were going to freaking flip out. And he's like, but anyways, around this point, I started going to nightclubs. My Uncle Pete, I go on ride-alongs with him, right? And he had this crew of bikers and street guys, wise guys. Most of them were Italian. Most of them were from his old neighborhood. Some of them were cousins. Some of them were definitely mafioso on the come up. They're young, they were still like 28, 29, 30 years old. So they were young guys. They weren't on the mat. They weren't on the, the radar of the feds. I don't know where they are today or where they ended up, but at the time they were just young hustlers, young street guys. But they had well-known, well-established mafia last names because of their fathers, their grandfathers, their uncles, or whatever. And they played the role, and they took advantage of their positions. They knew they could leverage their name or the connection or the association of their father and grandfather to get things done, to make things happen, to scare and intimidate, to do whatever. And that's what they did, from loan sharking and booking to extortion and robberies and on and on and on. They extorted drug dealers. Basically, any drug dealer in the area that they found out had to pay them. Any drug dealer, unless it was a mob-connected guy. If the guy had a mob connection, they'd leave him alone. Or if the guy was already paying a mob guy for protection, they'd leave him alone. But if he wasn't, they would just simply go send a guy like me, and they'd be like, listen, you're pumping weight, you got to pay us a percentage, otherwise we'll kill you. It wasn't like it was a joke. It was serious. She pulled a gun and put it in their face and said, dude, this ain't a freaking joke. Next time I pull the trigger. You want kids? You want to raise your kids, man? That's the type of stuff that they did. And I did for them sometimes. But so my uncle would take me on these ride-alongs all the time. And we go to the Easter market, and there would be these warehouses where these produce and food wholesale businesses, they're all within like a square quarter mile. Everybody knew everybody. They'd been there. These businesses had been there since the 40s, This is now in the early 90s. And, late 80s, early 90s. And I'd go in there with them, and because I was known for fighting, what I'm saying? My uncle would tell them about my fights. I got in a famous fight in Nicky's Pizza in Greektown. Some dude I was in there with my boys. We'd been drinking. We went there to get some pizza. It's like probably 1 o'clock in the morning. I think the place stayed open until 2. And the guy was, this is the crazy story. The guy was yelling at us. It was a black dude yelling at a white chick, man. He's yelling at her. I didn't like that, And I said, hey, man, calm down, frick, man. Speaking to a woman, man, relax, and just F you, F me. And he said, I'll beat this bitch's ass if I want to. You can do nothing, white boy. And I was like, I'm the wrong one, mother effer. And I start walking towards him, and he picks up a chair and like tries to smash me with it, right? So I pick up a chair and try to smash him with it. Then his boys were in the bathroom. There's like 4 of them. They hear it, and they come running out of the bathroom. And they see this, and my boys jump up. And before you know it, it's a full-blown brawl. But we're not really fighting. We're just throwing chairs and tables. And at the end, at the end, like something happened. My friend Pat did something and started laughing. He fell. He slipped and fell. We all laughed at him. And they started laughing. The black dudes were laughing too. And by the end, we were just all laughing, right? But the guy who owned the place knew who I was, and he told my grandpa. And he claimed we caused $5,000 in damage. And my grandpa had to cut him a check or cash him out $5,000 for all. And plus, I was banned forever. Could never go back in there. The black dudes, by the end of the night, we just were kind of laughing, like, F it, man. Have a good night. We just trashed this freaking place. But, and they knew about fights like that. And they knew about other fights. And I was always fighting to knock somebody out, knocking somebody's teeth out. You know, I was only 17, 18 years old. Me and my boys would basically go out looking for fights all the time. But it wasn't like the little punk crew where they 5-on-1. We would go to parties where there were we were 5 against an entire party. St. Clair Shores guys would go to East Detroit. We'd go to Roseville. We didn't beef with Roseville too bad, but East Detroit and Detroit, you know, those neighborhoods. We just go there because we heard a party because one of us were talking to a girl and she says, I know where a party is. And we go, all right, go. And we show up and dude, listen, this is how prepared to fight I was. Not everybody was as bad as me, but I was like this. I put a roll of nickels with duct tape in my hand because when you grab a roll of nickels, it gives you a good, and it's heavy, and just bang, you just knock somebody out. I had it in my pocket all the time. My boys would walk up and they tap my pocket. You got that? I said, of course I got that. I always care. And later I found this lead weight from a fishing net. And that was even better. And I had that. So we were getting in fights weekly, you know what I'm saying? Every weekend, especially in the summer, it might be 2, 3, 4 times a week because all the parties and whatever. So they knew who I was, my uncle's crew. They were aware that I was a tough kid, young kid. I just started working out. That's where I'm getting at. And I had started working out because first of all, my boy Gino, who was buff, he had a big old chest and big old arms, and he was buff as hell, and all the girls loved him, you know. And it's funny, he's funny, he was deceptively smart. He was a guy who kind of, you would have thought he was not that bright, the way he talked and acted, but really actually was. But he just didn't act like it, you know. He like a dumb jock, freaking musclehead, you know, Jersey Shore type of dude, right? But he was tough. He's a bad motherfucker. Tough. He was toughest guy in the neighborhood, barring me and maybe a few other guys. He was up there. And even I, you know, I offered to box him a few times. He wouldn't do it because he said, I've seen you hit the heavy bag, bro. I'm not getting in the ring with you. But who knows? He might have whooped my ass. He had a left jab that was nasty, so he southpaw. But anyways, I wanted to be like him because all the girls liked him. I was skinny. I was like 140 pounds, man. And I was like 16, 17 years old, 140 pounds. I was wiry as hell. I'm like, I didn't get no action from the girls at all. I did get a girlfriend at the time, which she liked me for me. That was cool. But I was so skinny and like wiry, and I said, you know what? I got to start working out. Plus, we're always fighting and brawling. And one thing that I learned from always fighting and brawling, bigger guys got respect. No, like nobody wanted to fight the big guy. All the big guys went backed up. Me, a little wiry guy, so I got to prove myself all the time. I'm constantly fighting, you know what I'm saying? But the big dudes, nobody asked with. Like Gino, nobody really messed with him. I mean, he'd knock motherfuckers out all the time, but they didn't really want no action. He'd just go up on him like, what's up, man? They're like, no, I'm good. Bam! He'd freaking knock him out. With me, they look at me and go, what's up, man? And swing on me. Boom, boom, boom. We started fighting. And this literally was a weekly occurrence, which I know to a young millennial type of young kid who spent their life on the internet pretty much, or watching YouTube videos or whatever it is, they can't wrap their mind around it. We didn't have YouTube or the internet back then. It didn't exist. We had just us and this out in freaking the gladiatorial arena of the world. And so we'd go out there looking for trouble, drink some beers, smoke some weed, drive around, go from one party to the other party, and just get in some drama and some fight. And yeah, you got hurt once in a while. I had my nose broken and busted up my lips, whatever. And I've been hit with bottles and bats and stuff. And just you got involved. And I was one of the worst ones, but all my boys were like that. We all were fighting. Pasco, Gino, Pat, Jay. We were all, Marty. Everybody was fighting all the time. I probably fought more than most of them. But still, I mean, it was the same freaking thing. They weren't backing down from nobody. My crew would never back down from nobody. Even big older dudes. Although I do remember one time this giant steroid out dude basically punked us all out. We kind of ran from him. He looked crazy. He was acting crazy. He was kicking his own car. Bang, bang, bang. I'll beat you, red, bang, bang. This dude was a nut, man. We're like, We ain't trying to help. It was like 4 of us on one dude. Like, and he's big. He was about as big as I am now. You know, and we were like, man, we were like little. You know, I was 16 at about 140 pounds. So I started lifting weights. But when I started lifting weights, what I did was I got into investigating steroids. I thought, man, steroids would help me get bigger. You know what I'm saying? So I started asking around, and keep in mind, by this point, I'm already in clubs. That's why I talked about my uncle a minute ago in the ride-alongs. Because what he would do is he would take me to see his boys, and he'd do collections. You know, he'd go say, you know, this guy Artie was his main guy, and Artie, what do you got? And he'd give him some money. And this is for loan sharking and whatever they were doing, and or club money. They had some clubs, also a pawn shop. So he'd take me to all these different like businesses. And a couple of them were nightclubs, right? And he'd walk into this nightclub, and there'd be a bouncer at the door. And I remember one, it's called American Pie. This is the main one, really. And the bouncer, Jeff, is still my friend. He's my boy. He might watch this, he might not. He's a very busy man, but very successful. I'm very happy for him. A good Christian dude. But we were friends, then we fell out over a girl, and and just got into it over a girl. And then years later, we became boys again, and now we're really cool. He's a great guy. I love the guy. But he was working the door, and I come walking in, and with my uncle. Now my uncle, I think, was 29, and I was 17. So he walks in the club, and he says, "Hey Jeff, this is my nephew Al." And he's like, Jeff's like, "Hey, what's up, Al?" And that's it. We walk in, and he goes into the back, and there's like an office, and he goes and talks to his boy for 5-10 minutes. I don't even remember what. And then maybe we had had a beer at the bar or something. Then we left. And I'm thinking, dude, this bouncer now knows that I'm freaking my Uncle Pete's nephew. I'm gonna see if I can get in here, right? Like if I can get in here in the club, do some clubbing. It was in the ghetto. It's that Houston Whittier in Detroit, in the ghetto. It's really in the ghetto. And but I didn't care. So one night I told my boys, let's go hit this freaking club. Like, how are we gonna get in? We got no freaking IDs. I'm like, I think I can get us in. So I said, come on. So we all drive down to this club in the ghetto, in the hood, man. Music bump, boom, boom, boom. This guy, big freaking guy's working the door. His name's Jeff. I come walking up. I said, "What's up, Jeff? You remember me and freaking Pete Tokel's nephew?" And he's like, "Yeah. What's up, Al? How you doing?" I said, "Good. Listen, these guys are all with me. We want to go and have a drink." He says, "Well, who's with you?" And I'm like, "These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was 10 of us. 10 guys." He's like, "All right. Go on in, Al." He says, and then I said, "Cool, thanks, man." I go walk in. He tells the other guys, like, it's $5 cover. That was the shakedown. It was a $5 cover. Might have been 10. Everybody had to pay $10 to get in. He probably put the money right in his pocket. So basically, they weren't going to get raided for underage drinking. We're in the hood, bro. We could have been in there freaking having a crack party. But so he shook them down for $10 a piece, and then basically that's what they did. Every time we come in, he'd shake them down for $5-10, whatever it was, and we would go in there and drink and brawl and get in brawls, constantly getting brawls. And this is my uncle's buddy's club. They own this club, these bikers. And these East Detroit kids would come in there, man. And they were tough kids, man. To be perfectly honest, they were probably tougher than us. They were hardcore, really tough kids. And they didn't like us. And there's a whole story behind that, too. It's really kind of the fault of me or my girlfriend. My girlfriend moved from East Detroit to St. Clair Shores. And then she had some parties. And when she had these parties, all of her East Detroit friends, well, she had 2 brothers, 2 older brothers. And when she'd have a party, the 2 older brothers would invite all their friends from East Detroit over to intermingle with all Ramona's friends, which were my friends from St. Clair Shores. And it started with a big brawl. I remember the kid named Jason Grenby punched my friend Chris Chatino in the mouth, knocked his front tooth right out. Right in front of me. I was literally talking to the girl who wasn't even my girlfriend yet. This little freaking short chick about this big, and Ramona. And I'm talking to her. And all of a sudden, I like witnessed, I don't even know what made me turn around and look. There was some kind of an aggressive confrontation right next to me. Just as I glanced, this freaking guy goes, bang, bang. 2 shots right to the dude's mouth. Real fast. It's like, wham, wham. And dude, knocked dude's teeth out. He goes right down. And next thing you know, all hell breaks loose. full on blow. There's literally probably 70 people in this basement, man. And it's probably 50-20 my side with St. Clair Shores guys. And a lot of them were just soft pussies too. But those 20 freaking East Detroit kids were freaking, serious business. And they held their own against 50 freaking St. Clair Shores kids. And then it spills outside and freaking, it's just a big brawl. And then, now there's this big beef between Lakeshore and East Detroit. And then it happens again. She has another party a month later, same exact scenario. I don't remember what started the fight the second time. But there's a big brawl, bust out. There's a window gets busted out. Now there's this major beef between St. Clair Shores and East Detroit. And it goes on for years. And I believe, I've been told that it still happens. That East Detroit and St. Clair Shores still fight, still hate each other. They're still beefed out. When they play each other, there's the cops, there's brawls, whatever. We had a huge brawl one night. This is the night I hit a guy with a baseball bat when I went to their basketball game. And this big, huge brawl broke out in the hallway during the basketball game. And all the basketball teams and everyone, the bleachers, everything, cleared the bleachers, both teams out into the hallway. And everybody's fighting in the hallway. I got this freaking guy against the locker, bang, bang, bang. And this big football coach ends up pulling me off and slamming me against the locker by my throat. And my boy Gina walks up and goes, let him go, bam, and punches this freaking football coach in the mouth, boom. And we take off running and we get away. And then we get outside and like 10 minutes later, we get a big, huge brawl. A guy's got a bat. And he's walking up on me with a bat like, what's up, what's up? And I freaking was like, hey, what's up? And I was, wham, I grabbed the bat and yanked it away. And as I yanked it, I pulled it so hard, I fell on the ground. And as he starts to kind of come up on me, I just went to swing the bat, trying to hit him in the knee. And the way the bat came up, I freaking hit him dead in the forehead, bang. So split his whole head open. He had like 100 stitches. It was horrible. It was in the newspapers. It was horrible. I almost got charged with it. But a girl from East Detroit who knew my girlfriend knew who I was and warned him. He's like, you don't want to press charges. You don't want to pick. So the way they did it was, you got to pick them out of a lineup. And that's what they did. They put me in a lineup. And the kid's like, I don't see him. They're like, none of these guys are him. Because the witnesses said it was that guy, He's like, I don't see any him. It's not the guy. Because they said that if you testify and press charges against this guy, your dad who works in the auto union, they're going to get your dad fired. And he'll never work in Detroit again. They're going to UAW will find something to kick him out and you lose his pension and blah, blah, blah. You can't mess with this guy, which is pretty much all bullshit. I couldn't have done that, but they made him believe I could have. Maybe I could have, if I worked hard enough and talked to my uncles and, all the old guys. But that's what they did. They tricked him and told him that. So he's like, didn't press charges. So this big freaking beef. Anyways, I'm working out in trying to get a little bigger, a little more buff, and I'm studying the steroid business, right? Or steroids. I'm learning about them. So there's these two dudes, man, there's three guys. A guy named Mike and these two dudes named Dave, both named Dave. Dave DeAugustine, Dave Demers. Both big muscle-bound dudes. One, Dave DeAugustine, God rest his soul, was a big muscle-bound, very intimidating-looking guy. Super handsome. He looked like a Greek god. Great genetics. He's probably 6'1", 6'2", really buff, just everything perfect on him. He's just a dark, olive-skinned guy, handsome as you can make a guy, and he looks scary too. He looks tough. What he wasn't. I'd learn later that he was a pussy. But his friend Dave Demers was a real tough guy, and he was for no games. That guy ended up in prison for a bunch of years for stabbing a guy. But and then they had their friend Mike McCauley. Mike McCauley was this gigantic, muscle-bound, huge genetic freak. Just huge. Like, he didn't even work out, and he could bench like 500 pounds. I mean, he was a freak. And he was crazy as a mother effer, man. This is the same dude that made me punch him in the nose just to let me go across the street. They were all friends with the kid Chris who lived across the street, which was weird because the kid Chris is kind of a nerd. I guess those guys were weirdos too, really. But I knew they were involved in steroids because the one dude they were all huge. So I said, can you guys get any steroids? And they're like, yeah, I can. So I started like buying steroids from these guys. And they were ripping me off and selling me fake steroids. They looked real, these little bottles of Deca. And I didn't know anything about it. So I'm just like, they're like, do a half cc of this and an insulin needle and boom, boom, boom. And then I'd later learn it was all fake. I'd do a cycle and I'd work out and I'd eat and I'd get bigger and stronger. I was like, this stuff is great. It's working. It was fake. It didn't do nothing. It was all placebo. Everything I got was all natural. But when you're 16, 17 years old and you're already basically like on steroids, your puberty. And so And I was eating really, I smoked weed. I had all the money I wanted, and I just eat, smoke weed, work out, eat, go to the beach. That's all I did. Let's go to the beach, eat, work out, smoke weed. That's it. That's all I did. So I laid around, I slept, eat, boom. So my body was growing fast. And I thought it was the steroids that I bought from these freaking 3 muscle heads. But then I met a guy named Joe, my actual cousin, and he taught me, he's like, yo, these things are fake. Here's how you can tell. And I'm looking at him like, damn, dude. And it wasn't Joe. It was Jerry Gadet was the guy. So Jerry, I'd meet Joe later. My cousin, but I wasn't close. I didn't know the guy. I'd learn later he's a cousin. So what happens is there was a guy named Jerry Gadet. This guy's a badass mother effer and just super strong. Because I'm smart. I'm trying to figure out where these 3 muscle heads are getting their juice. I mean, and back to the kid who maybe guy might even punch him in the nose. Like me and that dude and my boy Jay took on an entire frat party and punked them all out. Just like, what's up? Like my boy Mike basically walked over to the keg and wouldn't let anybody drink out of the keg unless they paid him. And we're at a frat party that we didn't even pay to get in. This big party, Wayne State University. He walks over there. People are going to get a keg, beer at the keg. He's like, it's $5 a beer. They're like, what? This beer's for the party, man. I paid to get in. He's like, it's $5 a beer. And some people started paying, and this one big mother effer walks over. He's like, what are you doing, bro? Charging people, man. It's our beer, bro. And he's like, I'll beat your ass, you big gumpy mother effer. I'll kill you. I'll kill everybody up in this mother effer, man. I'll make you pay to drink a beer. And he's like, yeah, really tough guy. You got to take on a whole party? He's like, yeah, I will. What you going to do? And they're like, come on, man. Just trying to have a good time, man. Chill out, man. Even like that, man. We're going to party. Eventually, I told Mike, let's get the frick out of here. Because I'm sure they called the cops. And then the cops are going to come and make us leave and trespassing and blah, blah, blah. But he punched me in the nose because this is how crazy he was. I was sitting there talking to him about steroids with my friend Chris, who lived in the street house across the street. And I said, all right, man, all good, man. I'm about to freaking, go home and eat dinner. I lived across the street. And he goes, you ain't going nowhere, mother effer. I said, what? He's like, you ain't going nowhere. I'll beat your freaking ass. I'm like, what's your problem, Mike? You good? He's like, you ain't going nowhere unless you punch me in the nose. I said, man, why would I punch you in the nose? Ain't we boys? We're cool. He's like, mother effer, you think you're tough, man. Everybody thinks you're a tough kid. You think you're tough. He's like, show me how tough you are. Let's see if you got the ball. Punch me in the freaking nose, man. Punch me in the nose. I swear I'll beat your ass. And I'm like, Mike, man, I don't punch you in the nose, man. We're supposed to be friends. I don't do that with friends. I don't punch my friends in the nose. It's crazy. He said, mother, if you don't punch me in the nose, I'm going to beat your fucking ass. My dad was on the porch across the street. He's hearing this. My dad's across the street like, what the frick? And I'm just like, all right. Bang! I hit him in the nose. I waited like for death. I'm like, I didn't hit him that hard, but bang, I gave him a little bloody nose. All right, man, you want it? Boom! And he snaps back. He goes, looks at a little blood. He goes, oh, man, you got little balls on you, man. Fuck out of here. I'm like, all right. Like I ran across the street. My dad was like, what was that all about? I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. So I did my homework and I tracked down where they were getting their steroids. I can't remember how I figured it out, but it's from a guy named Jerry Gadet, this big, huge dude who went to Lance Cruise with my sister. He was a big, gigantic mother effer, man. Strong as hell. And he looked scary, and he was. He had these eyes that were kind of like, they were like blue, Alaskan blue, like those Alaskan Malamutes, like those type of dogs, the eyes, like the blue, crystally blue eyes. And that's the eyes that he had. And he was about 5'7", 5'8", was pretty short, and about 260. And he was one of the strongest guys I've ever seen. He's one of the only guys I've ever seen pick up 160-pound dumbbells. And he pick up 160-pound dumbbells and do shoulder presses with them or bench them. I also see him put 500, 600 pounds on the bench and rep it out. Just walk right up with like 405. His warm-up was 405. I couldn't get 405 off the bar, off the bench at that time, not a millimeter. He'd just grab it and do like 10 reps. Boom, boom. What the frick? And then I became boys with him because I went over to him. He was on the Aerodyne bike, right, riding the bike, and I get on the bike next to him at the gym. And I was like one of the smallest guys in the gym. I might have been the smallest. There's one guy I think was smaller than me or about the same size. He's an older guy. I was a young little punk. This big giant mother effer's on the bike. He's like warming up. He's kind of just riding his bike, warming up. And I said, hey man, my sister. He looks at me like, who the frick are you? I said, my sister, Anne-Marie Lindblom. He's like, that's your sister? I said, yeah. He's like, oh, damn, dude. Everybody's trying to hit that. It's like, I said, yeah, I know. I said, but listen, check this out, man. I know, I know you've been dealing with Dave the Augustine on some of that, on that tip, you know what I'm saying, on the juice. I said, I'm trying to get get a plug, but I don't want to deal with no fake shit, man. Like, I'm trying to get some real, authentic stuff, you know what I'm saying, and not get ripped off. And he's like, I got you, bro. I got you, man. Here's my beeper number. He give me a card and beeper number. So I beep him. And ultimately, me and him have become boys. And there's a whole long story about him that somebody started a rumor that I slept with his girl, but it wasn't true. And he knew it. But I thought he thought it was true. And then I thought, when I see this motherfucker, he was a man. He was a guy that I don't know if I could have beat in a head-to-head fight. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I could beat that dude's ass. With everything I got, I don't know if I could have. Maybe I get lucky. It was 50-50. He was a bad mother effer. I seen him kick a guy in the face and kick him off the ground like it was a freaking, Mortal Kombat. And this is 4 biker dudes followed us out of the club, out of the biker club, Harpo's. 4 guys followed us out. One of them had a knife. They're after him. And I said, what are we going to do, man? Should we run? Because we were walking. They're like, yo, where you guys going? You ain't going nowhere, mother effers. And I said, should we run? He's like, no, I got this. He pushes me aside, goes, I got this. He goes, what's one of you mother effers are first? And the biggest one kind of starts walking forward. And he just goes, snap, and kicks this mother effer square in the face. He's only 5'7", keep in mind. But he can squat like 600, 800 pounds. This is a bad mother. Kicks this guy in the face, knocks him out, knocks him back. And he goes, who's next? And they're like, not me. They were like, no, we're good, man. It was between you and him, man. We ain't got no problem. I'm like, damn. And he guy's got no neck, and he's that powerful. If he's got any skill, and he was a kickboxer. So that's the other thing I forgot that he was a kickboxer. So if he's got any skill as a fighter, and he's a trained fighter, and he's that big and powerful, you don't got much of a chance. I don't know. I know I could knock him out if I got that one good shot. Kind of, if I was able to just freaking chin shot him on the first shot. That's what I would go for. If I had to fight him, I would just focus on that chin, just try to wang. But he might just grab you and slam you on the ground like a gorilla. Anyway, so we became friends, and he started selling me steroids, and I learned from him that the plug was this guy named. I'm not going to say his name because he's still out there. I think I'm Facebook friends with him. I know he's Facebook friends with my cousin, and my cousin's Facebook friends with me. So I'm not going to say his name. Say his name is Joe. But he was a good dude. And this is what I thought about. I learned from Jerry that this guy named Joe was the plug, the main guy, right? So I sell steroids. I start selling steroids. I make a little money. I'm selling steroids to guys at school, football players, guys in the gym, and guys at like a couple other high schools. Because I had friends from all over these different high schools because they bought weed from me. So I knew guys in Roseville, I knew guys in Fraser, I knew guys in Clinton Township and Harrison Township, I knew guys in East Detroit and Warren, St. Clair Shores, Grosse Pointe. So I had these connections. And I'd call them all and I'm like, yo, you guys interested in some steroids? And they're like, hell yeah. So they would give me money up front. I'm like, well, tell me what you want. Well, I want a bottle of test is $150. Like, bring me the money. Like, I'll take 2 bottles of test. Give me the $150. And then I get all the money together, and I go to Jerry and say, all right, this is what I need. And then he'd take the money. He says, all right, I'll be back in an hour. And he'd bring me a bag and go, here you go. And then I'd deliver it, right? That's how it went for a while. Then one day Jerry says to me, listen, I'm going away to college. He was just graduating high school. I was like 17. He's like, I'm going away to college on a baseball scholarship. I'm leaving. He's like, so I'm like, damn, dude, what am I going to do? I got all these customers. He's like, don't worry, I'll hook you up with the plug. It's Joe. I just talked to Joe. Blah, blah. Well, he never does. He never talks to Joe. So freaking Joe, Jerry vanishes. And now I'm getting calls every day. I need some juice. Juice. And this is good money. I'm making $600 or $800 a week, $1,000 a week from this juice. I'm like, damn, and orders are piling up. So I strap my freaking nuts on, right? And I go to the gym. At this point, I know Joe's the plug, and I realize that. Shouldn't realize, because everybody treats him like he's the Godfather. You know what I'm saying? He drives a pickup truck, brand new pickup truck. But this is the guy is as Italian as they get. He's a short, stocky Italian dude with kind of curly hair, big gold chain, and his whole crew was Daggos. They're all Daggos. So keep in mind, this is how my mind thinks. You need to understand this. When you're me and you grew up in the environment that I grew up in. When you see an Italian with a big gold chain and a crew of Italian guys around him, you automatically assume he's mafia, right? Because that's how I'd grown up. That's how I was around. All the guys like that I was around were mafiosos. And so in my young, immature mind, I just made the automatic assumption that this guy Joe was a wise guy, a mobster, right? And in some regards, he was. And I don't think he was never a made guy. Maybe he became a made guy down the road, but at the time, he was a 29-year-old kid. You know what I'm saying? But I saw him and his crew of guys at the gym. They were all huge. All these freaking huge guys. I remember there's 5, 6 of them. They were all clocking. They were selling steroids. I didn't realize they were making millions of dollars from steroids. Millions. So I eventually strapped my nuts on and say, Joe, can I have a word with you in the locker room? He didn't even know I knew him. You know what I'm saying? I guess he knew I knew him from the gym. Because it was a little tiny gym called Muscles Gym. Just a little freaking backwoods, not backwoods, but it was like a little tiny gym. It wasn't like an athletic club or nothing. Like it was an old school, all iron gym, just a rectangle with freaking weights in it and stuff. And there was this fat chick named Karen who worked there. And the guy, Dale, who owned the place, he kicked me out of there twice. I ended up getting my girl a job working there, which is great because I got free protein shakes and I got free tank tops and all this stuff I had her stealing. But I actually got in a fight with this huge dude, man. What was his name? Hop or something like that? Hop. Crazy ass mother effer, bro. Crazy big one. I actually sucker punched him in the nose. Huge. He was like flirting with my girl, giving her a back massage or something. I go, oh, it's all right. Don't worry. I'll bring this girl and I'll put it in her ass. He says, what'd you say to me? And then I realized what I said. Because he's massaging my girl behind the counter at the gym when I come walking up. Put my stereo on the counter, and my girl's like this, like I ain't doing nothing. I said, don't worry about it, honey. I said, I'll have him bring his girl up here so I can stick it in her ass. What'd you say to me, mother effer? I'm like, you heard me. So now he's following me around the gym. I'm gonna beat your freaking head in when you walk out the door today. I'm gonna beat you. And he was a crazy big mother, Hop, something like that. So I said, yeah, you gonna beat my ass? I'm scared as hell, man. I know he's gonna beat my ass, like literally beat my ass. There's no way I can beat this guy. So I go, come on, man, beat my ass, and let's go out now. I walk out the door, and I got next to the door, and as soon as his face came out the door, I'm like, bam, hard as I could in the nose, boom, splatters him, right? And then he starts chasing me around the front lawn of the gym. This is the main, avenue, right? Or Harper Avenue. It's like a 4-lane street, and the cars are everywhere, and I'm in the grass running. I'm trying to get away from him. He's chasing me. Then about 6 or 8 big old dudes run out there, get between us, and are holding him back. They're like, he's just a kid, man. He's a kid. This guy's like 30 years old. I'm 17 years old, and I weigh about 140 pounds, and this dude is freaking like 250 huge. So Dale and the owner ended up kicking me out of the gym for a while. But I ended up saying, me and all my boys went to World's Gym because you kicked me out. If I come back, all my boys will come back and buy memberships. We buy protein shakes. We buy let me back in. And he did. He let me back in. So, and I got cool with not cool with the guy, the big Hop guy who wanted to kill me. Jerry Gadet is the one who told him, if you touch him, I'll stomp you. He basically told Jerry, the crazy one, the kickboxer, basically told the Hop dude, like, listen, you ain't beating nothing. He's like, you touch him, then you got to go through me. And the guy's like, all right, Jerry, if that's your boy. But, so I go to this guy, Joe. I invite him in the locker room. And I said, hey, man, can I have a word with you? He says, what's up? I said, listen, all that stuff Jerry was getting, I played it up like I was big time, but I wasn't. I said all that stuff, which Jerry was getting a ton of stuff. Just a small portion of it was mine. I said, all that stuff Jerry was getting for me, all that stuff Jerry was getting was for me. I said, but now he's at school and I ain't got no plug. He says, all right, listen, here's my phone number. Give me a call. When you call, ask to use the tanning bed. I'll tell you if I'm available. You come over. This is where it gets cool. I said, all right, Joe, thank you, man. I was excited. Now, to me, this guy was a straight-up gangster, wise guy, like mafioso. So when I call him, I said, yo, can I use Joe tanning bed? He said, yeah. So I said, I wouldn't go over there dressed like this with a tracksuit and a hat backwards. And I would turn my bumping stereo down, way down the block. So I wouldn't pull up bumping like a punk, what I normally did. I pull everywhere I went. I pulled up boom, boom, anywhere where it was. At my grandparents, I pulled up bumping. No way, with some of these old wise guys, to me, I always respected them because it's how I was raised, in the environment I was raised in. Because of my Uncle Pete. You respect these type of people. He always taught me that. You respect these type of people. So I would dress up. I would put a shirt and tie on or a suit or something. And when I went to his house, I'd show up dressed up. And I'd pull up in the driveway and I'd go knock on the door and say, hey, come on in. So the first day he walks in there, we go into his office. He had this really nice house in Roseville. and he had a beautiful office. And it was funny because he'd sit me on the couch and say, I need a minute. I'm in here with somebody in his office. They had like his glass doors are shut. And he'd be in there talking to some other big, huge mother effer. And I walk. And by the way, the reason the guy dealt with me, when I first pulled him in the locker room, I said, hey, listen, Jerry's getting all this stuff. I said, I think you know my uncle. I knew I should throw my uncle's name in there. I'm like, I think you know my uncle Pete Toko. He goes, Pete Toko, which one? I said, Pete Toko. I said, Pete Toko Jr. from Grosse Pointe. He said, you got a couple sisters? I said, yeah, that's my mother. My mother's one. He's like, okay, I know Pete. Yeah, good man, good people. I said, so as soon as he said he knew my Uncle Pete, I knew I was good. Like, I was like, okay, if he knows my Uncle Pete, he knows I'm safe, I'm good, I'm solid, right? And he did. So that day, first day I went there, he puts me on the couch to wait for a minute because he's dealing with something. And when the guy walks out, I stand up, and he says, hey, Al, how you doing? And he tells the big guy, hey, listen, this is one of my young guys, good guy. His name is Al. It's Pete Toko's nephew. And this big mother effer freaking goes, hey, what's up, Al? Shakes my hand. And he just comes in. He opens the safe. He got this big freaking huge safe. And in it's like 1,000 bottles of steroids. There's different kinds. There's maybe 20 different kinds. Winstrol and there's so many. I could go on and on. Plus, there was weed in there, and he did sell coke too, but guns, a bunch of guns. But he'd say, well, what do you want? I'm like, well, I mean, I can get rid of this, that, and that. And he's like, well, here's what you do. Take whatever you need and then just come back when you got the money. And I said, I can do that. Because I pulled out money. I said, I got freaking probably $1,800 here. I can cash this, that, and that. He's like, all right, but you don't have to take whatever you want. And then he gives me a brown paper bag. He had a bunch of paper bags there. And he's like, let me get 2 bottles of Winstrol. Let me get 4 bottles of Test. Let me get 10 bottles of Deca. Let me get 20 Cestons. Let me get the blah, blah. And he sticks them in the bag and he writes down. He's a ledger. He's got this big freaking ledger. And he writes everything down in this ledger. And so he says, go. And I go home and I call all my steroid buyers from all these different cities and towns and gyms and places. I was like, this is what I got. And everybody's freaking thrilled, man. Like, everybody's like, oh, hell yeah. Because now I got the best stuff, too. Like, before, these guys were selling me. This guy, the day that I was there, Joe, he had like rows of stuff that were fake. He says, listen, these are fake. I'll give you these fake bottles of testosterone for like $25. Dude, I've been buying them and selling them for $150, but I've been paying $100 for them. He's like, oh, those are bullshit. He's like, you can sell them to make money on them. He's like, but the stuff that you and your friends are going to use, you want this stuff. It's real. I was like, how do you know they're fake? And he goes, you look at the label. If the label is digital, I mean, the lot number on the label is digital, it's fake. It has to be stamped. He goes, look at the way it's crimped. The lid's crimped. If it doesn't have a perfect crimp, it's been crimped in the basement. It's not real. He's like, you look at, plus they can put fake peanut oil in there and stuff, and the testosterone always has a taste and a smell to it. And he taught me all these ways to tell fakes and reals right there on the spot. He taught me. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. So I got all the fake shit for like $25 a bottle to sell to these dummies, because they're going to work out, they're going to eat, they're teenagers on natural steroids, hormones, and if they think they're on steroids, they're going to work out, and they're going to eat more, and they're going to rest better, and they're going to grow, and they're all going to think they're on steroids. It works 100% of the time on everybody. So I get all this fake dumb bull crap from, on the bottom shelves, and that crap I'm clocking. I'm selling $25 bottles for $150 easily all day. Guys are buying 3, 4, 5 bottles at a time. And then there's what's called stenazanol, European Winstrol, 20 cc bottles. I remember getting like 50 bottles of that. But anyways, so I'm clocking all this money. So steroid game blew up, man, and I'm just killing it, man. I'm like, this is good. And you know what? I didn't do them though. I didn't. That was the crazy part. I'm selling it to all these guys, but by this point, I got, like, I had been working out for like a year and a half. I'm like 18 years old or whatever. No, I was 17 years old. I've been working out about a year, but I'm getting good results and I'm getting bigger, and I'm in good shape already. At the time I was like, what the hell? I don't even need to do steroids. Perfectly honest, I'd rather have the $200-300 for the cycle than, a cycle's $300, $400. I'd rather have the $400. I'm just working out. I'm just going to eat, and everybody thought I was on steroids because I was selling them. I mean, the rumor got out. Everybody knew, even girls knew. They're like, oh, Al's on steroids. He sells steroids. Everybody knew. Everybody, it's gossipy and everybody talks shit. And I'm like, I let him kind of believe it. I'm like, yeah, but I was not taking steroids. I was completely natural. And then only time I did steroids was back when I was 19 years old. I wanted to do some bodybuilding shows, and I did some Winstrol V and some Primaball or something Primaball before the show. It was kind of like a pre-contest to help you harden up and cut up. But that's it. That's all I did leading right up to the show. And I never took steroids for that. It was crazy. But anyways, what ends up happening with Joe is that these guys were doing it big, man, really big. These guys, there was 55 guys in his crew total, over 5 states: California, Texas, Miami, Chicago, Detroit. This was an organized crime crew. I didn't know this. I was just a kid who'd go over there about once a week. I'd grab a freaking bag of steroids and I'd walk out of there, and I was selling weed. At one point though, he had a bunch of weed in there. He had like freaking 10 pounds of weed. There was a drought. There was a freaking drought. I couldn't get any weed from anybody. It was completely out of weed. I walk over there to get some steroids, and he opened the freaking thing, and I was like, I said, "Oh, damn, bro, you got weed?" He's like, "Yeah, why? Can you get rid of it?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh," I'm like, "Why do you got all that weed?" He's like, "My boy told me to buy it, that there was going to be a drought, but the drought never happened." I'm like, I didn't want to say the drought happened. I didn't want to say that. He's like, "My boy told me there's going to be a drought. Buy up these pounds and just put them on the ice." I'm like, "Yeah, it happens sometimes." He's like, "Nah, I've had this stuff for months, whatever it was." Like, he just put it in there. He's like, "Want it?" He's like, "Take it all." It was like 10 pounds. I was like, "All right, boom, thank you." I got it for a good deal, and I pumped it, I sold it, and got his money. And one day, so I go to everybody at this point, everybody at the gym knows I'm a young steroid dealer. And by now I'm getting kind of bigger, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting bigger, and I'm not the littlest guy in the gym anymore. And I come walking into the freaking gym one day, and it's all quiet and morose. Like, I just knew something wasn't right. And I'm like, what the frick why is everybody looking at me? And it's all quiet and morose. And I come walking up to the counter where I had to pull out Alpine stereo. And I sit on the counter. I said, "What's going on, Karen?" To the fat chick who worked there. She says, "You ain't heard?" I'm like, "Heard what?" She's like, "Joe got raided last night." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, it's in the newspaper, man. You better take a look in the news." I'm like, "What?" So I go look in the news, and there's freaking a big article, steroid bust. And it said 55 men arrested in an organized crime ring, over 5 states, $8 million seized, 100 weapons, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and like 5 million doses of steroids. Millions. They called it, like a 10cc bottle, they call it 10 doses. A bottle of 500 pills was 500 doses. And they added it up, and they said it was over 3 million doses or 10 million doses, whatever, some crazy number. And I was like, holy shit. So the day or two later, I actually called Joe, and I said, hey, because he's out on bond. I call, somebody said he's home. He's out on bond. He made like $1 million bond. So, I paid $100,000 to a bondsman. They put $1 million. He's on a tether. So I said, I call him. I'm like, "Yo, Joe, everything good?" I'm like, "Can I use a tanning bed?" He's like, yeah, come over. So I come over, and as soon as he lets me, and by the way, he tried to hook me up with his sister. He had a pretty young sister, a pretty little freaking like 19-year-old, 18-year-old, beautiful little girl and sister. And his mother was there, and she would clean his house. His mother would come over to clean his house, and he'd pay her. And one day he brought his sister over, this beautiful girl, and he says, she was about my age, maybe a year older. She says, he starts selling me to her. He's like, she's like, I think her name was Maria. He's like, "Maria, you like Al? I think I would like you. You guys would make a good couple. You should take her out, Al." I'm like, "I'm not taking out your sister, man. I have a girlfriend, and I know what's going to happen. If I break this little girl's heart, you're going to want to kill me." And I'm good. I was really like awkward and put on the spot. I'm like, "Oh yeah, maybe." And the girl's like checking me out. She thought I was cute. And I'm like, "Oh man, I can't do this." But anyways, I go to his house the day after the bus, or a couple days, a day or two maybe. And as soon as I walk in, he's like, "Let's walk the dogs. Take a walk for the dogs." So he raised Rottweilers. So we had a bunch of Rottweilers, like 5 of them. So we grab a couple of Rottweilers and we go walking. He's like, "Hey, it's over, man. They got me." I said, "Is there anything left?" The first thing out of my mouth was, "Is there anything left?" He's like, "There's a couple cases of Sten, which is this cheap Mexican steroid." He's like, I guess, have a guy give you a call," which I ended up getting some of that. Me and my boy Tony Bomarito got some. And he's like, "No, I said, "What's gonna happen, man?" And he's like, "I don't know. You fight the case, whatever." It's like, I don't know. They got me good. He said, "I'm worried about the cocaine, not the steroids." And anyways, because they got him with some weight, some cocaine. And it's like, "All right, man, damn, dude, I'm sorry, whatever." I was sorry because I wasn't gonna make all this freaking money no more, man. I was like, damn. I was making, even though all my weed was probably making me $3,000 a week average at least, it was nice making an extra 1,000, 2,000 sometimes a week with the steroids. It was pretty freaking easy. So then about 2 days later, there's a knock on my door. I open the door. It's this big, tall mother effer who actually reminded me of my parole officer when I got out of prison. Looked just like him. This big, tall motherfucker in like a 3/4 length beige, like raincoat type of freaking like jacket, right? That sunglasses. I know he's a cop. There's no doubt about it. I look through the little window on my door. I look out there and go, shit, man, that's a cop. I'm all like, oh no. I open the door. I'm like, oh, it's like, Alan Limblom, I need to have a word with you. He says, I'm agent so-and-so. I need to have a word with you. And I'm like, oh, damn. So I just walked in. I said, let's sit down and sit at the table. So we sit at the table. And he has the freaking ledger, man. He's got the freaking ledger. The whole Joe's ledger, man. It was coded, but not good. It said literally on there, L. And he's like, there's 2 L's on here. He said, no, we got you on video. We got you on the wire. We know who you are. You're just a kid buying steroids. I don't know how much you're selling or who you're selling it to. I said, I was just selling it to like my friends, my friends, they play football and stuff. So a couple of guys to the gym. That's it. I'm not like making a bunch of money or a dealer or nothing. He says, well, there's 2 L's. This L says, shows that he took like, $20,000 at a time worth of steroids. I'm like, that's not me. That's what I said. It's like the other one shows that you only taken, $4,000 or $5,000 at a time. I'm like, that's definitely me. He's like, so you're just, I said, yeah, I was just hooking some of the guys at the gym, you know what I'm saying? Because the guy's trying to get in shape for football, blah, blah, blah. So he said, okay. He's like, I don't think I think, was it ATF? He's like, I don't think the ATF is going to pursue an indictment or charges on you. They know you're a small fry. They said they know you're just a kid. They freaking everybody knows you're just a kid. Freaking, they don't care about you. So they're probably not going to test charges. But we had to freaking, follow up on, the ledger. I'm like, yeah, man, that's it. You got me. It says right there, I wasn't really anything big. He says, yeah. He's like, you may be in touch, may not, man. But if I was you, I'd knock it off. It's illegal. He said, they just passed a law that made steroids the same equivalent of cocaine and heroin. The law was passed a month before the raid. They waited for the law to pass. That's how dirty these mother effers are. They waited for the law. They passed the law just so they could bust these guys. Because before that law, steroids were a misdemeanor. It was like nothing. So what they did, the ATF literally went to like the Lansing and the prosecution and the judges and the legislators and said, we need to make this a class 3 controlled substance, whatever it is that's equivalent to cocaine and heroin, we're going to make that. And then they made it, it passed, and like 2 weeks later, they freaking bust them. They've been on these guys for months, maybe years. I mean, they followed them to Florida, California, had wires everywhere. Well, they had surveillance. I mean, they were honest mother effer, man. He showed me pictures of me walking out of jail, and I always got like a suit on, looking like a little young mobster, suit on, I'm dressed, or I have like a 3/4 length trench coat on, I'm walking all slicked up, carrying a freaking bag, big freaking brown bag of dope, and then they click, they were getting me. Stupid, man. So that was it. But then I'll end it on what happened next, and then I'll finish. About 2 days later, after the ATF or FBI, I think it was ATF, could have been FBI, I don't remember. It was the feds, so it was definitely feds, so which could be either one, I guess. I was young, I didn't know the difference. About 2 days later, my friend, I'm about to get ready to go to the gym. My friend pulls up, Mark Monday, and he's parked facing the wrong way in the street. He's in the street, but on the curb, against the curb, parked, facing the wrong way. He starts rolling a joint. We're going to smoke a joint and go to the gym. That's what we do. He's sitting there rolling a joint, and all of a sudden, freaking, the window's down. It was like summertime. And the window's down, and all of a sudden, he hears a voice say, is Al in the house? He looks up, and it's just freaking, it's a narco. It's a cop, but he's not dressed like a cop. He's got like a leather jacket. He was wearing like 2 or 3 beepers, a leather jacket, sunglasses. And then there was another guy who was kind of like walking up to my house at the same time. And my boy Mark was like rolling his joint. He's like, what the frick? He's like, I don't know. I just got here. So the guy's like, all right, we'll see. And he turns around and Mark peels off. He had an escort. He just peeled off in his escort. I'm out of here. And he knew nothing good is coming from that guy. Whoever that is, it ain't going to be good. I'm just going to leave. Good luck, Al. And I come walking out with my duffel bag. I like open the door. Boom. There's these 2 freaking feds standing on the freaking, like, the lawn right in front of my porch. And they go, Al Limblom, I presume. And I said, yeah. And I said, listen, man, I got bad news, man. Sorry to inform you, but you're under arrest for a conspiracy to deliver anabolic steroids in the amount of over $5,000. And I'm like, and I believed that the steroids that I sold were fake, but they turned out to be real. It was methyl test. But my first reaction to that was, man, them steroids I sold weren't even real, man. They were fake. He says, it don't matter. He said, real, if you sold them under the presumption that they are real, it's the same difference. But lab results came back that they were in fact real. So, we have to take you to jail. He's like, do we need to cuff you? I said, no, no. You're going to give us no trouble? I'm a 17-year-old kid, man. My dad comes, like, he hears this. My dad's like in the kitchen. He hears this. He comes walking over. He's like, yo, what's going on? I said, Dad, I'm getting arrested. He's like, for what? I'm selling some steroids. It's a long story like that. I said to the cop, listen, I said, how much is my bond going to be? They're like, probably won't be that much, man. You're just a kid, won't be that much. I'd say probably, with a bondsman, $600-700 maybe. I said, can I get some money? Would you mind if I go get some money so I can bond out? And he looks at his partner. His partner's like, yeah, go ahead. I said, thanks. I went in my freaking bedroom, picked up the freaking mattress where I had $20,000, freaking grabbed like $1,000. I think I grabbed more than that. I think I grabbed 3,000 to be honest with you. I grabbed $3,000. Put it in my bond was only I think it was 6,000. But you only pay a bondsman 10%, so it was $600. So I went in, brought the money with me. They arraigned me the next day, because if it's a felony, you can't just bond out. They don't, you have to wait for a judge to set your bond. So I went in the next day. They did try to get me to rat, by the way. They did when they took me down to the station and when they're booking me and they wanted to investigate me or interrogate me a little bit before they booked me in the county or the jail. I think I just spent the night in that little district jail, and then in the morning they took me right to the thing rather than put me in the county jail and bring me back. That's what they did. They stuck me basically in the jail at the jail at the precinct in the back and gave me a sandwich and said, in the morning you're gonna see the judge. But they took me in a room and they said, we got anything to say? And they're like, well, we know you're involved in the freaking the big Joe D bust. We know that we didn't bust you because of that. We waited until that happened because we didn't want to shake the roof. We didn't want to ruffle the feathers. We didn't want you to get busted and then worry about this big, huge dragnet, this FBI dragnet. So we waited. And this guy, this rat mother effer, man. I guess I'll just finish it on this and then tell you next time about the rat mother effer who ratted me, set me up, and how I smashed him freaking like 10 years later. But anyways, so that was that. I wouldn't cooperate. They wanted to try to get me to give them some information on this, that, and the other. I'm like, I don't know nothing, man. Get me a freaking lawyer. And then, these guys aren't dumb, man. Like, they knew who I was. They were I had a freaking file that was this deep already. The cops had tried to bust me freaking 10 different times on dope sales. It's called Comet Narcotics Task Force. And Comet had already tried to bust me on several occasions, but I smoked them out. I knew that it was a narco or a rat was trying to get me. And I wouldn't deal with it. So they were investigating me for a while, probably like a year. And so I was like, I'm not talking about nothing, man. Get me a freaking lawyer. And then they said, all right. They were cool. They're just like, he's just one of them kids, he's a tough young kid. He ain't gonna say shit. So no point in trying to get him to flip. And not like he could give us much information anyways, because the guy that he, his connection was a guy, a huge bust for 2 days ago. But they knew I had been selling weed and I had weed plugs, but I wasn't telling on nobody. And they're like, they weren't even that serious. It's just weed. Like, what's the guy gonna do? Tell me about a guy who sells him 5 pounds of weed at a time? It's freaking minor. We're not gonna waste our energy on him. Just let him go, man. I remember one of them's name was Detective Fontaine. I don't remember the other one's name, but I remember one, Detective Fontaine. He was another one, had like creepy, crystally blue eyes. He was cool enough, man. I'm not mad at him for doing his job. He was very nice to me, actually. Wasn't a dick. The guys didn't even put me in handcuffs when they arrested me. They just put me in the back of the squad car. It wasn't like a regular squad car, but it was like a detective car. So then we talked all the way there, and brought me in and fingerprinted me and did all the paperwork. And said, I said, no, I'm good. got rain the next day, set my bond at like 6,000. I bonded out, called my girlfriend, come pick me up, and that was it. I fought the case for 18 months. So I'll talk about that whole scenario in the next video. But that really ended. I'll talk about this in the next video. That, when I got busted, it ended all my reign of dope rent. Everything ended. Everything. The weed, the freaking steroid, it all. And then I had to watch these freaking little scumbags that I was dealing with start to grow. It drove me freaking nuts. You'll see. I'll see you next time.
Former prisoner and inmate.
You did it. What are you doing, Guns?
You bit the hell out of me.
Wanna see you with your hands up. Going straight to the sky, let me see you put your hands up. Cause we do till we die and we on another level.
I'm at New York City.
To the rest of your body, we get some got a piece of the pie. Told you once, told you twice that we only got one life.
On the way to achieve success after prison, and he's going to share his story with us right now.
Diamond shine, best at night. You wear yours, I'll wear mine.